Welcome to Twilight Garage. David Rogerson here. We're going to be delving into sex, drugs, rock and roll, and all things counterculture here on Twilight Garage each week. With my co-host, the great Casey Fields, we're going to be joined by a bevy of experts in each of our subjects. Currently, we're dealing with all things Manson, and we have the great Deb Silva as a regular expert and contributor. Thank you so much for your subscriptions and your support. We are here for you. We are doing this for free out of the love of the expression of this case and keeping things fair and fun.
The Twilight Garage podcast is brought to you by The Red Onion, the Bay Area's finest hamburgers, located at 11900 San Pablo Avenue in El Chorrito. Tell them Twilight Garage sent you.
Twilighters! Thank you for joining us in this part 2, where we explore the tragic youth of Ms. Dianne Lake as she was introduced to what is commonly referred to as the Manson family. Here on Twilight Garage, where each week we explore the counterculture and we delved into specifically in this phase of our investigations what is again known as the Manson case, the Manson family, however you want to term it. We're just really hitting a nice rich vein of it right now. We'll be getting into some music and other things later, but Dianne Lake is our subject again today. She has been a tragic figure. She is now emerging as an adult, speaking on her youth. She's got a book out, and maybe, as Susan Atkins did, changing her story up a little bit. Seems to be softening in her appreciation for Charles Manson, in juxtaposition with her own terrible upbringing with her biological family and her completely untrustworthy, awful, manipulative, mentally ill father, Clarence. And you've got some good insight into this. That's why I kind of keep dancing around this, because these topics are always tough, and it's just like this whole subject. We enjoy the topic because we know some of the characters even personally, and they've touched our lives, but it's based upon the bigger story where we have some unfortunate victims. And one of the victims in this story, again, Dianne Lake, how she became a victim, long story. How she became a famous victim, it was a matter of about a year, wasn't it? She wasn't around Charles Manson or Lynette Fromme or anyone for any real length of time.
Maybe a year and a half at the most. Yeah, so let's go on back to January, February 1968. Charlie takes a trip up to San Francisco and brings along with him Dianne. And now I've read two different accounts. One that he also brought with him Lynette. Another account says he brought Ella Jo Bailey, but he went up to go see his parole officer, Roger Smith. And after seeing Roger, he went to see his friend, the Candyman, in Berkeley, I guess, to get some Zuzus. And I don't believe that this was a major drug trip. He might have gone to get a little bit of LSD, but Dianne said he came back out from the Zuzu man with a huge bag of candy. So they went down to the Esalen Institute, which Dianne had already been to with her mom and dad, and they used the hot springs late at night. And she says this is when Charlie introduced her to what Barbara Hoyt likes to refer to as the oral whatchamacallit. We would know this as oral sex. I don't know how much of the story is true. I'm hoping at some point we can talk to Lynn and find out if Lynn was on this trip and what's her feeling on it.
That could be interesting. I know there's a lot of little lurid details that people seem to like to fill the blanks in with, like who taught who to give a blowjob or what these different allegedly sisterly acts were amongst the girls. And what keeps coming back to me, I'm very reluctant to ever quote Lynn or try to speak for Lynn, but in my acquaintanceship with Lynn, what has always come clear to me, just overriding message, they were not interested in sexual relations amongst each other. It wasn't their driving trip. When they would have group sexual encounters, it was a different energy and it was bodies flowing and different things moving. And I've heard that from a lot of different people I've known over the generations who've told me about their larger group sexual encounters. And that all lines up fairly well. So I want to steer away from a lot of these lurid details. Like, people are going to want to steer into that for whatever reason. And I just,
and we'll address that even more later. Someone creepy that likes to talk about this kind of shit.
It's really off-putting. I think between that and just the general lack of cultural background or breeding, and a lot of the people who have been alleged spokespeople for this case, it's unfortunate. This case has gotten the short shrift, I believe, because anybody who speaks on it is either somebody who's involved and is going to be edited in a certain way, has something to lose, or is trying to gain something. And those people are generally, as we've seen, not
say it.
Well, they're not the most well-spoken individuals, and their use of the English language is not very exciting to behold. And it really makes the whole study of this time,
they muddy the waters,
this culture and this period, it makes it a joke to those on the outside. And I think it's a terrible misrepresentation of the great intelligence across the board in this group. I think this group was very much above average intelligence. I think, let's look at Ella Jo Bailey. Let's say Ella Jo was on this trip. You look at the kind of company you're in with her. What a beautiful, cool, interesting, bubbly personality from everything I've heard about her.
And so they're after this trip in the spring, they're back down in LA, and now they've moved from Lower Topanga Canyon, the Snake Pit area, the Spiral Staircase House. They've moved up into the center Topanga Canyon area, closer to where Gary Hinman lived. They lived in a house up on Summit Ridge. And around this time in April 15th, I believe, Mary gives birth to Pooh Bear, to Michael Bruner, at that time known as Valentine Michael Manson.
And there's the whole Sunstone Hawk and all that. That was really cool.
So Dianne was there for that. Paul Watkins met her around this time.
He came at that, right, because it was the Summit House. And there's some controversy around baby Paul and his ability to keep his mouth shut. Even early on, he had a very self-centered interest in staying loaded and out of jail. And he may have very much alerted the authorities to the family's presence there on Summit Ridge.
We covered that in a prior episode, but I don't think it's been released yet. We might redo that, or that might come out in the member section.
Yeah, it was a pretty long episode. We're going to maybe break that one up into some shorts because as like I say, as babes in the woods here, we're learning the things that you people here like to have. And that's why you're subscribing to this goddamn channel.
So fitting right along with what you just said about Paul, here he is talking about Dianne in that period of life.
About how attracted he was to her right away.
he comes to the door. She would answer the door naked. He was shocked. He was invited in. They were in there smoking some weed.
Those interviews with him when he's
Yep.
smiling so hard he can barely talk. He's like, I smelled me some marijuana, and that smelled real good to me. And I saw these naked girls. I looked over the way. There was more naked girls. That's something that I could get with. So then I came in, and it's just the way
had
he
his
talks
eye
about
on Susan Atkins across the room, but he was sitting there next to Nancy Pittman and Dianne, which were good to go. I guess about a month later or a couple months later, he ended up, the first person he hooked up with in the family was Dianne.
Right. And they were very tight.
Yeah, Paul made this comment that she was 14 and her life was acid trips and orgies. So
when you look at his book and the way he speaks on her, again, he's out here doing these speaking tours and making his living, trying to warn kids off this terrible drug infested lifestyle with sexual promiscuity and the things that'll lead you to the gates of hell. And then every time he speaks about it, he lights up. He's a totally different person. He's like, well, you know, back in those times, my name was, and then as soon as he really gets himself in the time, you can see he just animates, his color comes into his skin, and he loved that.
He was loved a little man with a big ego. He wanted to be like Charlie.
And that was a beautiful, can you imagine for Paul Watkins, what a wonderful period of time that was until he became alienated within himself. Can you imagine if he hadn't hooked up with that wet blanket Brooks Poston? Dude, that guy, dude.
Shout out Brooks.
Dude.
Hope you're doing well, brother.
I got one for you, Brooks, right here. You're number one, bro. Good Lord, what a sniveler.
So in April 21st, Dianne talks about this story about how they were in the big black bus and they were traveling up the coast, and they stopped at Leo Carrillo Beach down there in Ventura County, and beautiful area.
Place, yeah.
And they pulled off to spend the night at this area in Sycamore Canyon, and they got the bus stuck in the mud. And so just doing what young people do, they just decided, let's party it up.
Camp, but we used to do it all the time. So this is where we're staying.
They lit a bonfire and got naked, did some dancing, and a
little bit of tripping.
Asleep. Yep.
Maybe there was a little psychedelics, you know what I'm saying?
A little bit of that. And next thing you know, they fall asleep, and CHP or LA County they stop by, and what's going on here, arrests all of them. And specifically for Dianne, he hit her with fake driver's license and lack of proper identification. Right.
But didn't she hold out with the Bluestein name there? Yeah. They took her in as an adult. So many stories on this one because we've got Michael Bruner. We've got Mary being painted in a very bad light by the police, especially in the press. Much was made of their nakedness. Like, come on, man. It's young people having some damn fun. And then this, I love my baby's on the bus. Like, come on. That is so tired and mean. And you look at her, she's this Midwestern mommy. Like, that is very unlikely.
So one of the funny things from that arrest story that I liked is Dianne had these 4 tabs of acid in her pocket.
Right.
And all of a sudden she just downs them all. Yep, gone.
That's so heated at like 15, 14 years old. And that's where the infamous photo of Charles Manson, I have yet to use it in any way, shape, or form because it's just for me. I don't care for it. You know the one.
Bug eyes.
The one they used on Life magazine. Yeah, because he was tripping balls. They probably, I wonder if they slapped him around a little bit, or because that's the other thing that Lynn has told me is that they would slap him around. That the cops would give him the fucking business, and they weren't shy about it. You fuck up kids, you get the hell out of Malibu. We talk about like Once Upon a exactly. I was gonna say we talk about Once Upon a Time, but really the Big Lebowski. had some serious Manson vibes
Yeah.
going on with the get the hell out of Malibu, Lebowski.
So then we get to the summer of 68. Dianne is one of the girls that's staying over at Dennis Wilson's house. And actually she goes on a trip with another girl. I forgot who it was, but they go to Parker Dam. It's the Wilson family vacation.
Oh, wait a
Parker,
minute.
Arizona.
Other girl. What are you talking about?
Who
Lynn.
was it? Was it Lynn?
Lynn.
Yeah. I just know he rolled up with these beauties, one, a couple of redheads, and showing off to his brothers.
Yeah, I think there may have been even more people involved.
kind of
I don't have the whole thing in front of me, but
embarrassing situation for the rest of the Wilson family.
Oh, they were pissed. The wives iced everybody out and were really cruel and shitty to especially Lynn. But I guess it was, I can't remember whose wife. Someone was actually cool.
Yeah.
She had a recollection of one person being cool. And you think about that being cast in that role. I mean, come on, dude. The dude knows what he's doing. Dennis Wilson knows he's being a dick, showing up to the conservative family's function with these wild ass hippie chicks. They're with their wives. He isn't yet divorced. He's still married.
Right.
Two young kids at home. Shows up with early 20s lady and a young teenager. Hey, bro, I don't know if that's quite kosher even in those times. Like, rough customer. I think it's time for a word from our sponsor. I just kicked my drink over. So someone's got to pay for something around here. And let it be Brass Depot from Ridgecrest, California. Tell them David Roderson of the Twilight Garage sent you. If you need some special poo-poo equipment or extra supplies, they're your guys. They've got a thing called Tannerite. Lot of fun.
Yeah.
Go down to Ridgecrest. Look them up. Their whole experience there on Balsam Avenue, incredible building, incredible showroom, literally in the former Bank of America vault from Ridgecrest. Beautiful layout, wonderful staff, get you all set up. Let them know we sent you. They got me back in the game. A lot of love in my heart for those people. A lot of fun in there. Get on down with your bad selves. Brass Depot, Ridgecrest, California.
So I wanted to touch on some of the wrong shit that she said over the years.
My goodness.
It's just weird stuff. She said that Manson met Dennis Wilson at Spawn Ranch, which we definitely know is not the case.
Is incorrect. But you just think about what kind of a dude Dennis Wilson was to pull up like this. He's saying all those crazy things in those English magazines. I live with 17 girls, blah, blah, blah. He was really a bit of a chauvinist. He was in that whole kind of golden penetrator circle with Greg Jacobson, who I can't believe shows up on these documentaries and will speak like he's a valid member of the human race. It's
shameless.
Like, what a shit bag. Him and Terry Melcher, man. Like, people make much of Manson's desire to kill those guys. And, I really wouldn't have much of a problem with it if it had happened that way. And, count me as a big girl, a big supporter of our girl, Sandy Blue. Good. But get after it. Some of these dudes didn't need to see the 70s happen.
Another wild thing she said was that Bernard Crowe was the black member of the family.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
Well, and then clearly if we listen to Deb and we understand people, I've gotten some very cryptic statements from survivors who said that the main connection from Bernard Crowe was that he was a supplier to the stars, much less so than to somebody like Charles Manson. He was the person servicing the stars, much higher end clientele.
She referred to their little trips like to San Francisco or Texas as their magic mystery tours. which I think is kind of an odd way to think.
No, absolutely. That term was bandied about a lot. Charlie used it, Red used it. A lot of people definitely used it. And that's what they would say, is that every day was kind of like that album. I received the album when my parents split up. So it was in early 76. I got a nice original copy that I still have. And it came with a big booklet that was part of the actual LP. It didn't come out. It was like 17 or 21 pages. And you flip through it, and it's some of the most incredible, fun photographs. It's like a Peter Max painting come to life. You've got the Beatles in it. So you've got John, was my big hero. You have everybody in it. The album is incredible. The production just really took it to the next level after Sgt. Pepper's. It was probably the pinnacle of their work in terms of psychedelia, because, Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, these things sonically really took you some powerful places. And if you listen to Charlie, when he talks about, man, it was a magical mystery tour, man, every day. It wasn't Helter Skelter. It was a magical mystery tour, man. You want to hear about the Beatles? We were relating more to that. And everybody I've ever spoken to would say that. Like, yeah, they liked the White Album. Yeah, there was some profound shit in there. Sure, some of the language was interesting and cool, and they liked the music, but it was the Magical Mystery album that really impacted them, that they spoke on.
Some of you may be familiar with the term creepy crawls, or creepy crawl. It's something that Linda and Susan used to do quite a bit. So she refers to them as creepy crawly missions, which is similar to Catherine Sher called them the creepy crawlies. You know? Yeah, they're all different versions.
Yeah, different versions. We did shit like that as kids. We would do it naked. My brother and I, it was a variety of streaking, because in the 70s you had streaking, right? So there wasn't always like a party to run through, right? They'd give you a couple beers as a kid, you'd streak. They'd be like, wow, that was great. And they'd give you a couple beers, but you were so young, we didn't know what to do with the beers. So we go home with these beers, and then your dad finds beers, and where did these beers come from? And then, truth is stranger than fiction. You can't really tell your dad. It's better you stole the beers than ran naked for the entertainment of others and were given beers, right? So things like this would just happen when you were a kid. Just all these wild things. So we would crawl around. We'd do shit naked or creep through people's places, and that shit was fun. What the fuck are you gonna do? It's a small town, right? So I think a lot of this was a lot of ado was made about the Manson family doing it. And I think at that time, it wasn't unheard of. Cow tipping, rearranging somebody's furniture when you were drunk, shit like that happened all the time.
And that's what I think, coming at it from being as young as she was, she had a little bit different perspective, right?
Right. It was fun. It was a little wacky adventure.
So she referred to what they were doing at Spawn Ranch as pretending to be cowboys and biker chicks.
Absolutely.
Which I thought was an interesting way of saying it. Yeah.
Well, that came from Lynn and them too, because, I think Lynn was old enough to see the magic and what was happening. And then that's when they say it. It's almost like the moon landing. Was it all a simulation in a studio? Right? Was it a simulation? Because people would say it was all like being in a movie. That would be a great fictional way to think about it. You don't have to go all Tom O'Neill and it's the CIA, right? Because you had mentioned, Roger Smith and the parole officers and these different things. And that's when they're trying to say that the CIA was involved. Well, dude, the CIA, you've got this 14-year-old girl, you've got these different things, and you leave your asset alive in jail to die for 50 something years in jail. Really, man?
Yeah, we'll have to hit on that.
Yeah, that's another thing. But I think all these other tragedies, these things are just quick little lumps in the rug that we really need to show proper love and respect for, because this is Dianne Lake's life here. And we can look at it, as I have for a long time, in the context of the family, which was, the kid was a liability. They did a lot for her, not much payoff, turned around and shit on him. Then you see the whole thing with Blue talking about the Hendrickson footage where she says, well, Dianne Lake is just, speaking their language. She's a puppet of the DA and blah, blah, blah. And she had, as we're going to find out now, post raid, I guess in part 3 probably, but
Yeah.
what's coming up is more serious things for her. But her whole life had been leading a direction like this. It wasn't like she just got pulled out of her middle class suburban life and Charlie Manson and these girls just raped and ruined her life.
So here she is starving for attention, right? Trying to get any kind of validation she can, which oftentimes led to doing some stupid shit, like burning some stuff down, getting punished by Charlie. And this isn't just coming from her. This is coming from Tex Watson, Catherine Scher, Paul Watkins, saying
she started losing
She was kicked in the mouth, punched, slapped. Her hair was pulled. Manson jerked her around by her hair.
Whoops.
I don't even want to say this one, but
come on, dude. What about it? We need John Michael Jones in here right now. Come on, somebody get up here and apologize for Charlie.
Paul Watkins said that he forced her to suck guys off. Harold True being one of them. He broke a chair and beat her with the leg of the chair. I guess there's a story about one time where he had her stripped down naked in front of George Spahn just to see if George would react. Blind man react.
Oh man!
And I guess apparently George blushed. So yeah, this is just wild.
I'm over here laughing,
things,
but dude, if you really look at it,
it's crazy.
Dude, it's nuts. It was a little girl taking all this shit. But again, not to apologize, but to just put it into context how something like this could go on over a period of time. Because people are like, why would this person stick around? And what it is, there's an overall picture. She was in this sisterhood, but she was crazy. Like she talks about it in her book where she stopped existing at about 9 when her dad left. Mm-hmm. Like that was the end of it. So her grandfather had literally spewed a load at her in the tub, like porn star nut. She's in the tub, like, bro.
Dude, why'd you have to say it like that?
Because it's in the book. That's how she says it. It's so unpleasant and terrible. Dude, Dianne Lake, say whatever you want, okay? Holy shit, Dianne Lake. She talked about that, dude. That was way gnarlier than the whole thing that's much made of, like where he got after it with her in the, you know what I mean, in the tool shed. Wherever they were.
So on Halloween of 1968, Manson took her and a bunch of the people in the family out to Goler Wash for the first time. And they went to go stay out there because Cappy's grandmother had Myers Ranch.
Family, right?
Yeah. And so Dianne says, and I don't know if this is true or not, but that Cappy like volunteered to go kill her grandmother or something. I don't really believe that story,
That's not true.
And the part of the reason I don't believe it too is because I don't think that Cappy was next in line to inherit the property.
Not at all. It's a complicated thing.
Yeah.
There's the story. It is still the only privately held land in the entire Death Valley Monument. It's the last piece. It's 40 acres. It's held by the Myers family, which is, now it would be Cappy's son, David. Mm-hmm. She has 3 other kids. There are cousins and and certain people are welcome there. Certain people aren't welcome there. There's still the functioning cabin there. The property is
actually well maintained. Yeah.
Right.
It's got solar panels, internet. I mean, it's a great place.
Well, and that's why I worry about people visiting Barker Ranch. That's why I'm not real comfortable camping out there and hanging for more than a short period of time because they don't know who you are. They don't know what you're going to do. People have really misbehaved out there, including burning down a lot of George Stimson's hard work out there that he did with Sandra Good in the name of.
Please, if you go out there, please respect the Myers property
and respect the monument. And if you're going to be out there, do everyone, including yourself, a big favor. Don't be a liability on the staff and the search and rescue teams, and don't get out there, get stuck, and get yourself hurt. It's a very, very dangerous place.
So I guess that Charlie was getting sick and tired of Dianne and kind of like left her out there in the
she
desert.
regressed, is what Lynn says
Yeah.
in her book, that she really she'd gone feral. She was yelling the wild things like Walt Disney died for your sins. Really not grounded, wouldn't bathe, wouldn't brush her hair, was becoming, like I say, very feral, acting out, as you had said, burning things. She was a pyromaniac, would break things, would cause drama, not pay attention. She was babysitting, and again, let a candle catch some shit on fire. And instead of acting on it, just kind of sat there like, oh, chip out, fire. It was really regressing into childhood. And Lynn was worried about her, and Lynn wanted her to reunite with her family. And from what I heard, it was a very depressing thing for Clarence and her mother to not come reclaim her and be more responsible.
So I guess Bobby Bosley was out there in the desert and gave her a ride back to Spawn Ranch on his motorcycle. And when they showed up, Charlie was pissed. Oh, what telling Dianne, what are you doing here? This is when he sends her away to go stay with Gary Hinman in Topanga for a while.
Right.
And she said that she tried to have sex with Gary, but she wasn't sure if he was gay or maybe he was just a stand-up dude that just wasn't willing to take advantage of an underage girl. And when that was something she was used to.
Right.
But she said that he taught her about Zen and Buddhism. And so she was out there for a while. Yeah.
You think about that again, right? That's a sentence in a book. Gary Hinman taught me about Zen. So you think about how long she was there, these different conversations she had. She's this very immature girl, hugely damaged individual, right? And then she's here with this sensitive gay music teacher who's had these various interactions with people known as the family, close with Gary. Maybe Gary carried on with them a little bit. I think there's always been the specter of that question. You know, people always want to throw the homosexuality jacket on everybody. And, you know, Lynn has always pretty much downplayed a lot of that. And I can see that too, because I've been in a lot of group situations, not like everyone's getting all, you know, goofy with each other, smashing clamps and stuff. So she's there at the house, and you think about what kind of a loss that must have been for her when Gary Hinman was killed. And do you know when she became aware of his death? Because that was more common knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Because the murders that was isolated knowledge. And Tex told her was that up in Olancha at that campsite?
We'll definitely get to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So at some point around that period, Dianne also found her way to a commune down in Topanga. I don't know which one, but allegedly she was tripping hard on acid.
Wow.
And they actually called up Charlie and had him come get her. So this is when she goes back to Spawn Ranch. And then in November of 1969, she gets sent out with Paul Watkins and Juanita Wildbush to go to Las Vegas to go collect supplies for the family in their time in the desert. And I guess that she was going door to door, claiming, basically asking for donations and claiming that she was a part of the Delta 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 sorority.
Can you imagine?
And they were out in Vegas for like 6 days. And then they, on their way back to Barker and Myers Ranch, they stopped in Shoshone. And they had this altercation with good old Inyo County Sheriff Don Ward, who told them to get the fuck out of Shoshone.
Right. That was the whole juju with the Tootsie Rolls and the LSD and the dancing in the graveyard. You reenacted some of that. But there's a lot of these characters on both sides of the fence that have become points of fascination here at Twilight Garage. Don Ward, interesting cat, real Western type character, archetypal guy, and then him up against Grogan, and the way they interacted. That's a fantasy conversation we'd love to have with Steve Grogan. Some of his takes on things, and very obviously intellectual, spiritual, philosophical guy. I can't believe these lawyers and these people fell for the idea that Steve Grogan was anything less than about 135 IQ, just shy of genius, because that guy is really sharp and on the ball. When you listen to his actual discourse, incredible guy. And man, to go up against such a big bad hombre as the deputy sheriff of Inyo County, Don Ward.
I want to correct too what I said. It was Bruce Davis that went out with the girls to Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Not Paul Watkins.
Yeah, because he was a little boy and he was hanging.
He was allegedly in charge of the credit cards, and he knew what to get, what they need.
Well, can you imagine sending Paul Watkins to do anything?
No.
Right. He'd come back with a bag of Tootsie Rolls and a bunch of gangsters trying to collect some debts. That's fucking kid.
Now, according to Dianne, and I don't know if this is influenced by Vincent Bugliosi, but she says that in December 68 is when Charlie really started talking about the Helter Skelter. He was really into the White Album, listening to it frontwards and backwards. And she said that that's when he started talking about this race war. And I think based upon some of her interviews, she really has stayed up with this case in the books and the interviews that have come out. So I think that her memory is skewed a little bit off of what really happened versus what she's read over the years.
It's really easy to have happen. I wouldn't fault her for that in any way, shape, or form. And what we've gotten from James Dawson, who appeared recently, if you all haven't seen those episodes, he was here discussing the recent documentary on Peacock called Making Manson. And what he had to say about Dianne's footage that they have, and that they didn't use all of it clearly, but some of what she had stated was that a lot of her memories had become diluted and she couldn't really say for certain what she had seen or what she hadn't seen. And a lot of the things she said that she testified to were things that Vince had told her, well, you were there, you saw this, you saw that, this happened, that happened. And then she testified to it. And now she's being a little more free with her words. I wonder if it's because of her disappointment in her book. I don't know what those arrangements were, how she feels about it now, but she's not sticking very close to the narrative in her book anymore, at least from what we saw recently. And I liked her interview with Ivor Davis for what it was, factual or not, whatever, at the Ventura Library there. And I look forward to giving her a platform here as well, in a non-judgmental way, to say what she has to say.
We definitely have a lot more to cover on her. I don't know. We have a little bit of time left. Do you want to go into 69?
Let's do that. And then I have gotten some feedback from some people who are important to me. And what it is we do have some fun, and I do love to digress. It's like my favorite thing to do. And so I tend to drag these things out a bit more. I love your factual based, date based record keeping. And that's in character with your book coming up soon. No Sense Makes Sense. But I do want to keep this thing going because we need to stay focused on these subjects. I have been kind of flitting around having fun in these early episodes, but it's really time to buckle down and get serious and stay focused, stay on subject, and we'll be on track with Dianne. And let's go ahead and pull it into 69, and then we'll come back with, I guess, installment 3 on this, baby. And I want to thank you for all this feedback, including the stuff I just expressed. And thank you for tuning in. And let's get into 69.
So in January 69, after a cold winter out in the desert, Charlie moved his family out to a house in Canoga Park where Ella Jo Bailey had been staying with Bill Vance.
The Yellow
They were renting this
Submarine
place.
House.
And yeah, we refer to the Yellow Submarine House, and it's right there in Canoga Park. And what's interesting is Diane's mom was working right there in the valley, San Fernando Valley at the time, as at a school called Summer Hills School. So I don't even know if she knew her mom was that close. But so shortly after living there, they moved up for 3 weeks to a house up in the Santa Monica Hills, not too far off of Mulholland Drive. And this is a point of disagreement amongst researchers. We know that they stayed at a band's house. Now, some people say it was the band Canned Heat's residence. Others say it was the band Iron Butterfly.
Canned Heat.
There you go. So they lived there temporarily before moving back to the Canoga Park home and then back to Spawn Ranch.
And there was a lot of action at Canoga Park. There was vehicular theft.
Mhm.
There was abandonment of vehicles in that neighborhood. There was a lot of activity coming and going from the house. It was a very, very lively residence.
Then in April, beginning of April, Karate Dave allegedly stole a bread truck and gathered a bunch of the family members out. I guess they were heading out to the desert, but on their way, they were driving through Lancaster on their way to Mojave.
Ridgecrest, baby.
Yeah, rolling through the Antelope Valley, and they got pulled over by CHP.
Oh man, it's a bummer. That whole strip right there. No, it's just this banked highway bed. You're like in an arroyo. Boom! They just come down off the overpass. You're so done. Real drag.
Speed trap.
Oh, dude, you're just right out there in the open. It's like, wah, wah. And they are not playing. They never have. They still don't. They just roll your ass out like lumpy dough, taking everything they can, man.
So they all got arrested, and Dianne got hit again with fake ID, no valid driver, no ID in possession. She goes to juvenile hall, and then we hear this story about her parents were forced to show up to the courthouse just to get her out, and they show up. She gets released. And I've heard that she thought she was going home.
Yeah, that she did. She felt
Yeah.
that this was the mother and child reunion. Clarence was finally coming to get her. She'd had her wild times with the Manson family, gotten beaten with the chair, been cold in Death Valley. You all do not understand the suffering that can be a drafty, cold room in the dead of winter in Death Valley when you don't have any food. They were living off of tortillas, man.
Mm-hmm.
They would put manteca, some grease, and like sugar on the tortilla in grand Mexicano style. And that's how they were getting down for like a long time. So Dianne had been through it, man. She was thinking mom and dad are here and we're going to be doing okay. And come to find out, Casey,
dad hands her $20 and says, "See you later." And there she is with no one to turn to and goes home with Charlie and them.
Damn.
I mean, rough.
Damn.
I think shortly after that, mom and dad separated for the last time, and dad went off on his own adventures. I don't know what Carol ended up doing, but then they're back at Spawn Ranch that summer, and she's doing some crazy stuff. Her and Gypsy are rolling the oil drum full of water down the hill.
Right? I love the clarification on that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And then, like you mentioned before, July 20th, 1969, the moon landing. She's there at Spawn Ranch listening on Danny DiCarlo's radio as it's going on.
Incredible.
And allegedly, like one of the girls said, "There's a man on the moon today." And somebody else, which I imagine might have been Nancy Pittman, said, "No, it's all fake. They're filming this in the studio or something."
Incredible, man. That was such just a monumental moment. Again, people just gloss over that. They put a man on the moon. We are here. He is there. Incredible. People really, really felt that moment.
In that last week of July of 69, Charlie was recording at Brother Studios at the home of Brian Wilson. And Nancy Pittman and Dianne Lake were skinny dipping in the pool. Brian's wife came home and saw these two girls naked in her pool, and she flipped out. I guess there was a lot of drama leading up until a couple weeks later, the murders took place. And I think that's probably a good time to stop it. We will hit a third episode on Dianne Lake and do her justice.
Ooh, buddy. And it leads into this whole alternate reality that I cannot stop thinking about. Brian Wilson has died. What are in his vaults?
Mm-hmm.
What if, people, can you imagine if there was a record or two of Charles Manson's more polished music? Maybe some of it is written by even the Wilsons themselves.
Mm.
Maybe there's been some music made together, because in Charles Manson's crazy jailhouse speech, he's implied that they actually physically played instruments together on tape. So that's an exciting thing underneath all of the specter of horrible things happening to Dianne Lake and getting kicked out of Brian Wilson's house by his very unhappy wife. We leave it with you, Twilighters. We want to thank our original, most favorite sponsor of all times, the Red Onion and El Cerrito. Also, of course, the Brass Depot.
And
Producer
shout out-
Alex is the greatest
Yes.
of all times. We love him. Did I stomp on your shout
No,
out?
that's what I was going to say.
I stomped on his shout out. We're so like-minded. Again, Twilighters, thank you so much for all of your patience, love, understanding, and support. As I've said previously, we're putting some stuff together, little merch that's going to be about the appreciation, more about the gimme and the I love yous than the cha-chings. And we want to thank you again for all of your wonderful feedback, for your likes, especially your subscribes, and let us keep coming at you. You know what gets me hotter than a double ARP discount? That's right. When you like and subscribe, babe. And that's the way it was on Twilight Garage. In the year our Lord, 2025.